The white silk dress hung perfectly pressed against the hotel room door, its intricate beadwork catching the afternoon sunlight that streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the bridal suite, while 32-year-old Emma Rodriguez sat frozen on the velvet ottoman, her manicured hands trembling as she stared at the phone screen that had just revealed a truth so devastating it threatened to shatter not only her wedding day, but everything she had believed about the man she was supposed to marry in less than 2 hours. Completely unaware that this moment of horrific discovery would lead her down a path of betrayal, deception, and ultimately the kind of strength she never knew she possessed when faced with someone who had been living a double life for the past 3 years of their relationship. Hello, my dear friends. I'm Tina, and I need you to settle in with me today because what I'm about to share with you will take you on an emotional roller coaster through love, betrayal, and the incredible power of a woman's intuition that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about trust and the people we choose to build our lives with. Emma's story reveals something profound about how some people can live elaborate lies while making us feel like we're the center of their universe. And if you've ever had that nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right in a relationship but couldn't put your finger on what it was, this story will resonate deep in your soul and remind you that our instincts are usually trying to protect us from truths we're not ready to face. I promise you'll want to hear every single detail of how one woman's world came crashing down just minutes before she was supposed to say, "I do," and how that devastating moment became the greatest gift she never knew she needed. So please hit that like button to let me know you're here with me on this incredible journey, and consider joining our beautiful community by subscribing, because I bring you real stories about real people facing life's most shocking moments with courage and grace that will inspire you in ways you never expected. Emma had been a successful marketing director at a tech startup in Austin, Texas, working her way up from an entry-level position through sheer determination and creativity, building a career that gave her the independence and confidence she had always dreamed of having while maintaining the kind of work-life balance that allowed her to pursue her passion for photography and volunteer work with local animal shelters on weekends. Her relationship with Marcus Thompson had begun 4 years earlier when they met at a mutual friend's birthday party, where his charming smile and easy conversation had immediately caught her attention, leading to a whirlwind romance that seemed to check every box on her list of what she wanted in a life partner and future husband. Marcus worked as a financial advisor for a prestigious firm downtown, driving a sleek black BMW and living in a modern high-rise apartment that overlooked the city skyline, creating an image of success and stability that perfectly complemented Emma's own professional achievements and ambitious goals for their future together. Their courtship had been filled with romantic weekend getaways to scenic hill country towns, elaborate dinner dates at exclusive restaurants, and thoughtful gifts that showed he was paying attention to her interests and preferences in ways that made her feel truly seen and appreciated for who she was as a person rather than just another romantic conquest. The engagement had happened exactly 2 years into their relationship during a surprise trip to Napa Valley that Marcus had planned down to the smallest detail, complete with a private wine tasting at a boutique vineyard, followed by a sunset proposal overlooking rolling hills covered in perfectly manicured grapevines that created a fairy tale backdrop for what should have been one of the happiest moments of her life. The diamond ring he had chosen was exactly the style she had secretly admired in magazine spreads and jewelry store windows, proving that he had been listening to her casual comments and paying attention to her preferences in ways that convinced her he was truly committed to building a future that honored both of their dreams and aspirations. The wedding planning process had been a year-long journey of decisions about venues, flowers, catering, music, and countless other details that seemed to bring them closer together as they navigated the complex logistics of creating a celebration that would honor their families while reflecting their personal style and shared vision for their marriage. Emma had thrown herself into the planning with enthusiasm and attention to detail that reflected her professional skills and personal investment in creating a perfect day that would mark the beginning of their life together as husband and wife, surrounded by the people who loved and supported them most. Marcus had been actively involved in the wedding preparations, offering opinions about menu selections, music choices, and seating arrangements, while maintaining the kind of easygoing attitude that made the stressful aspects of wedding planning feel manageable and even enjoyable rather than overwhelming or burdensome. His suggestions were always thoughtful and practical, showing consideration for their budget constraints and guest preferences, while supporting Emma's vision for the elegant but not ostentatious celebration she had always imagined having when she dreamed about her wedding day as a little girl. The venue they had chosen was a historic mansion in the heart of Austin's cultural district, with beautifully landscaped gardens and a ballroom that featured original hardwood floors and crystal chandeliers that created the perfect atmosphere for both their ceremony and reception. The photographer Emma had hired was known for capturing candid moments that revealed genuine emotion and connection between couples, while the florist had created arrangements that combined white roses, eucalyptus, and seasonal wildflowers in displays that would complement the venue's natural beauty without overwhelming the space or competing with the architectural details that made the location so special. Emma's wedding dress had been a labor of love, custom designed by a local seamstress who specialized in creating unique gowns that reflected each bride's personality and body type, resulting in a masterpiece of ivory silk and delicate beadwork that made Emma feel like the most beautiful version of herself, while maintaining the classic elegance she had always admired in vintage Hollywood glamour. The dress required 3 fittings over 6 months to achieve the perfect silhouette and ensure that every detail was exactly as Emma had envisioned, creating anticipation and excitement that built toward the moment she would walk down the aisle toward the man she loved and trusted above all others. The morning of the wedding had begun with a champagne breakfast in the bridal suite, surrounded by her maid of honor and 3 bridesmaids who had been part of her life through college, career changes, and various relationship milestones that had led to this celebration of finding her person and choosing to build a life together based on love, trust, and shared dreams for the future. The hair and makeup artists had arrived promptly at 9 in the morning, transforming the hotel suite into a bustling but organized preparation space where Emma could relax and enjoy the pampering while mentally preparing for the emotional significance of the commitment she was about to make. The atmosphere in the bridal suite had been filled with laughter, nervous excitement, and the kind of joyful anticipation that comes with knowing you're about to experience one of life's most important milestones, surrounded by the people who matter most in your world, creating memories that would be treasured forever, regardless of whatever challenges and changes the future might bring. Emma's mother had arrived with a special gift, a string of pearls that had been worn by 3 generations of women in their family on their wedding days, creating a tangible connection to the legacy of love and commitment that Emma was continuing through her marriage to Marcus and the family they hoped to create together in the years ahead. The photography session for getting ready photos had captured beautiful moments of Emma laughing with her bridesmaids, sharing quiet conversation with her mother, and admiring her reflection in the antique mirror that dominated one wall of the elegant suite, creating images that would preserve the joy and anticipation of this special morning for decades to come. The photographer had been discreet and professional, capturing candid emotions without being intrusive or directing artificial poses that might interrupt the natural flow of conversation and connection between Emma and her loved ones during these precious hours before the ceremony. Emma's phone had been buzzing periodically with sweet messages from friends and family members who were traveling to attend the wedding, sharing their excitement about celebrating her special day and expressing love and support for her marriage to Marcus, creating a stream of positive energy and affirmation that reinforced her confidence in the decision to spend her life with someone who had proven his devotion through 3 years of consistent love, reliability, and partnership through both joyful celebrations and challenging obstacles that had tested their compatibility and commitment to each other. The text message that changed everything had arrived at exactly 1:47 in the afternoon, just as Emma was slipping into her wedding dress with the help of her maid of honor, Sarah, who had been her college roommate and closest confidant through every major life decision for the past decade. The message had come from an unknown number, but the content was so specific and disturbing that Emma immediately knew it wasn't spam or a case of mistaken identity, but rather information that someone felt compelled to share despite the potential consequences and devastation it might cause on what should have been the happiest day of her life. The message contained a photo that made Emma's blood run cold and her hands shake so violently that she nearly dropped the phone because it showed Marcus in an intimate embrace with a woman Emma had never seen before, clearly taken recently based on the clothes he was wearing and the location that Emma recognized as the coffee shop near his office where he claimed to meet clients for informal business discussions. The timestamp on the photo indicated it had been taken just 3 days earlier, while Emma was finalizing last-minute wedding details, and Marcus was supposedly working late to clear his schedule for their honeymoon trip to Italy that was supposed to begin immediately after their reception ended. But that wasn't the worst part of what Emma discovered in that moment of devastating revelation, because the message also included a screenshot of text conversations between Marcus and this mystery woman, filled with intimate language and planning for a romantic weekend getaway that was scheduled to happen just 2 weeks after Emma and Marcus returned from their honeymoon, suggesting that this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a last-minute case of cold feet, but rather an ongoing relationship that had been carefully hidden and compartmentalized while Marcus continued to plan and prepare for marriage to Emma without any intention of ending his involvement with someone else. My beautiful souls, I can feel your hearts breaking for Emma right now, just like mine did when I first learned about this incredible story of betrayal and the strength that can emerge from our darkest moments. If this story is touching something deep inside your heart, if you're thinking about times when you've trusted someone completely only to discover they weren't who you thought they were, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, because you belong here in this community where we support each other through life's most challenging and shocking revelations. I want you to know that your story matters just as much as Emma's, and I need to hear from you in the comments about your own experiences with betrayal, or times when your intuition tried to warn you about something you weren't ready to see. The additional messages that followed contained even more devastating evidence of Marcus's deception, including photos of gifts he had given to this other woman that were identical to presents he had given Emma for special occasions like her birthday and their anniversary, suggesting that his romantic gestures and thoughtful surprises weren't unique expressions of his love for her, but rather a calculated pattern of behavior he used to maintain multiple relationships simultaneously without either woman knowing about the other's existence. The realization that she had been sharing her boyfriend and fiancé with someone else for who knows how long created a level of humiliation and betrayal that went far beyond simple infidelity, because it revealed that their entire relationship had been built on lies and manipulation rather than the genuine love and commitment she had believed they shared. Emma's immediate instinct was to confront Marcus directly, to call or text him and demand an explanation for what she was seeing. But the rational part of her mind recognized that he was probably already at the venue getting ready for the ceremony, surrounded by his groomsmen and family members who had traveled from out of state to celebrate their wedding, making a private conversation impossible until after the ceremony or during a public confrontation that would humiliate both families and create chaos on what should have been a joyful celebration. The timing of this revelation felt deliberately cruel, as if someone had waited until the moment when Emma would have the least ability to process the information calmly or make rational decisions about how to respond to such devastating betrayal. The stranger who had sent the messages followed up with additional context that made the situation even more horrifying, explaining that they were a mutual friend of Marcus and the other woman, someone who had been struggling with whether to reveal the truth, but finally decided that Emma deserved to know what she was getting into before making a lifetime commitment to someone who was clearly not capable of the honesty and fidelity that marriage requires. The sender explained that they had been watching Marcus deceive Emma for months while maintaining his relationship with their friend, and that seeing wedding preparations progress while knowing about his double life had become unbearable for someone with a conscience and basic human decency. The full scope of Marcus's deception began to unfold as Emma scrolled through the evidence that had been carefully compiled by someone who had obviously been documenting his behavior for weeks or possibly months, creating a timeline of lies and manipulation that extended far beyond simple infidelity into territory that suggested a fundamental lack of character and integrity that would have made their marriage a disaster waiting to happen. The photos showed Marcus with this other woman at restaurants Emma recognized as places he had claimed to be meeting business associates, at events he had said were work-related functions where spouses weren't invited, and even at locations during times when he had told Emma he was traveling for his job or visiting his family in Houston for personal obligations that required his presence alone. Emma's mind raced back through recent conversations and interactions with Marcus, searching for signs she might have missed or red flags that should have alerted her to the possibility that he was living a double life and maintaining a relationship with someone else while planning their wedding and talking about their future together with apparent sincerity and enthusiasm. The business trips that seemed to happen more frequently in recent months, the work dinners that required him to stay out late and return home smelling like expensive perfume, he claimed came from female colleagues who hugged him goodbye. The increased privacy around his phone and computer that he explained as necessary, confidentiality for sensitive client information that couldn't be shared even with his fiancée. The realization that she had been making excuses for behavior that her intuition had questioned created a secondary wave of self-doubt and anger, directed not only at Marcus for his betrayal, but also at herself for ignoring warning signs that now seemed obvious in retrospect. Though she recognized that manipulative people are skilled at providing plausible explanations for suspicious behavior, while making their victims feel paranoid or unreasonable for questioning stories that don't quite add up. The gaslighting techniques that Marcus had apparently been using to maintain his deception included making Emma feel guilty for being curious about his activities and convincing her that her questions indicated a lack of trust that was unhealthy for their relationship and future marriage. Sarah, Emma's maid of honor, noticed immediately that something was terribly wrong as Emma stood frozen in her wedding dress, staring at her phone with an expression of shock and devastation that transformed her from a radiant bride into someone who looked like she had just received news of a death in the family. The gentle inquiry about what was happening led to Emma sharing the devastating evidence she had just received, creating a crisis situation that required immediate decisions about how to handle the revelation while protecting Emma's emotional well-being and managing the practical reality that 200 guests were already arriving at the venue, expecting to witness a joyful celebration of love and commitment. The conversation between Emma and Sarah took place in hushed tones near the bathroom door, away from Emma's mother and the other bridesmaids who were still chatting happily while putting finishing touches on their hair and makeup, completely unaware that the entire foundation of the day they had been anticipating and preparing for had just crumbled with the arrival of a few text messages that revealed the truth about the man they had welcomed into their family and social circle. Sarah's immediate response was protective anger toward Marcus and concern for Emma's emotional state. But she also recognized the complexity of the situation and the need for careful consideration of all options before making any irreversible decisions. The practical implications of calling off the wedding at this late stage were staggering to consider, involving not only the emotional devastation of publicly acknowledging that the relationship was built on lies, but also the financial consequences of canceling vendors who had already provided services, the social awkwardness of sending home guests who had traveled significant distances to attend the celebration, and the family dynamics that would be affected by such a dramatic and public revelation of Marcus's character and behavior. The wedding venue had been paid for in full, the catering was already being prepared, the flowers had been delivered and arranged, and the band was probably setting up their equipment for an evening of celebration that might not happen if Emma decided she couldn't go through with marrying someone who had been systematically deceiving her for months or possibly years. Emma's initial shock began to transform into a more complex mixture of grief, anger, and disbelief as she processed not only the immediate betrayal revealed in the photos and messages, but also the broader implications of discovering that someone she had trusted completely and planned to spend her life with was capable of such elaborate deception and manipulation. The man she thought she knew, the person whose character and integrity she had never questioned, had apparently been living a completely different reality while convincing her that she was the center of his world and the most important person in his life, creating a cognitive dissonance that made it difficult to trust her own perceptions and judgment about anything related to their relationship. The timeline of their relationship that Emma began mentally reviewing revealed patterns and incidents that took on new meaning in light of the evidence she had just received, creating a painful process of reconstructing her understanding of the past 3 years and recognizing how many conversations, explanations, and reassurances had been carefully crafted, lies designed to maintain his double life while keeping her convinced of his devotion and fidelity. The romantic gestures that had made her feel so special and loved now felt calculated and manipulative, while the future plans they had discussed seemed like elaborate fiction designed to keep her committed to the relationship while he pursued whatever he was getting from his involvement with this other woman. The most disturbing aspect of Marcus's deception wasn't just the infidelity itself, but the psychological sophistication required to maintain such an elaborate charade for an extended period, suggesting that his capacity for lying and manipulation was a fundamental aspect of his personality, rather than a temporary moral failing or moment of weakness that might be forgiven and overcome through counseling or renewed commitment to honesty and transparency. The level of planning and compartmentalization required to keep two serious relationships separate while convincing both women that they were his priority indicated skills in deception that would make any future trust impossible, even if Emma could somehow forgive the betrayal and move forward with the marriage. The weight of the decision Emma faced in that moment felt overwhelming and impossible, because every option seemed to involve significant pain and consequences that would affect not only her own life, but also the families and friends who had invested emotionally and financially in celebrating what they believed was a genuine love story and the beginning of a healthy marriage between two people who were well suited for each other and committed to building a life together. The choice between confronting Marcus publicly during what should have been their wedding ceremony or privately before the guests arrived both seemed inadequate to address the magnitude of his betrayal and the complete reconstruction of reality that Emma was being forced to undertake in a matter of minutes while wearing her wedding dress and surrounded by people who were expecting her to be radiantly happy. Sarah's suggestion that they needed to involve Emma's parents in the decision-making process was both practical and terrifying, because it would mean explaining the situation to people who had welcomed Marcus into their family and were probably already at the venue greeting guests and preparing for the emotional experience of watching their daughter get married to someone they genuinely liked and respected. The thought of seeing the disappointment and anger in her father's eyes when he learned that Marcus had been deceiving his daughter while accepting their hospitality and inclusion in family celebrations created another layer of humiliation and grief that Emma wasn't sure she could handle on top of processing her own emotional devastation. The additional evidence that continued to arrive on Emma's phone painted an even more disturbing picture of Marcus's double life, including social media posts from the other woman that referenced a serious relationship with someone whose face was carefully cropped out of photos, but whose clothes and physical characteristics matched Marcus perfectly, suggesting that he had been allowing or encouraging this other woman to believe she was his primary relationship while keeping Emma completely hidden from that aspect of his life. The dates on these posts corresponded with times when Marcus had been particularly attentive and romantic with Emma, creating a timeline that showed him moving seamlessly between two different relationships without any apparent emotional conflict or recognition of the cruelty and deception involved in manipulating both women so thoroughly. The stranger who had sent the original messages continued to provide context and details that helped Emma understand the full scope of what she had been unknowingly participating in, explaining that Marcus's relationship with the other woman had been going on for over a year and involved the same level of emotional intimacy and future planning that he had been sharing with Emma, including discussions about marriage and children that made it clear he had no intention of choosing between them, but rather planned to continue the deception indefinitely, or at least until circumstances forced a decision. The revelation that Emma wasn't the only one being deceived, but was actually part of a pattern of manipulation that treated both women as interchangeable options, created a new level of objectification and disrespect that transformed her understanding of Marcus's character completely. The practical considerations of the wedding day continued to press forward regardless of the emotional crisis unfolding in the bridal suite. With vendors texting to confirm delivery times, the wedding coordinator calling to discuss timeline adjustments, and family members arriving at the venue who would soon expect to see a radiant bride ready to celebrate the most important day of her life with joy and confidence rather than devastation and betrayal. The contrast between the external expectations and Emma's internal reality created a surreal situation where she felt trapped between honoring commitments and appearances while processing information that had fundamentally changed everything she thought she knew about her relationship and future. You know what, my incredible family here, this is exactly why I'm so passionate about sharing these powerful stories with all of you amazing souls who make up our growing community. There's something absolutely heartbreaking but also inspiring about witnessing the moment when someone's strength emerges from their deepest pain and betrayal. If this story is making you think about your own experiences with trust and intuition, or times when you've had to make impossible decisions under pressure, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and become part of this beautiful family where we support each other through life's most shocking and challenging moments. I want to hear from you in the comments about your own experiences with discovering difficult truths or times when you've had to choose between social expectations and protecting your own well-being. What other stories of courage and resilience would you like me to share with our community? Your engagement and suggestions help me create content that truly matters to all of us. And trust me, Emma's response to this devastating discovery will absolutely restore your faith in the power of a woman's strength when she's pushed to her breaking point. Emma's decision-making process was complicated by the recognition that calling off the wedding would mean publicly admitting that she had been deceived and manipulated by someone she had trusted completely, creating a narrative where she appeared to be either naive and gullible for not recognizing the signs of his deception, or paranoid and dramatic for refusing to work through relationship problems like a mature adult who understood that marriage requires forgiveness and compromise. The social implications of ending an engagement literally minutes before the ceremony would create gossip and speculation that would follow her for years, while the financial implications would affect not only her own savings, but also the money that family members had contributed to create a beautiful celebration that would now become a symbol of betrayal and humiliation rather than love and commitment. The text messages Emma received from Marcus throughout the afternoon, filled with expressions of love and excitement about their upcoming ceremony and honeymoon, took on a sinister quality as she realized they were being sent while he was probably thinking about his other relationship and the weekend getaway he had planned with someone else just weeks after their wedding trip. His ability to compartmentalize his emotions and maintain enthusiasm for marrying Emma while actively planning to continue deceiving her revealed a level of emotional detachment and manipulation that made her question everything she thought she knew about his capacity for genuine love and connection with another human being. The support system that surrounded Emma in the bridal suite became crucial as she processed the information and began to formulate a response that would protect her dignity while acknowledging the reality of what she had discovered about Marcus's character and behavior. Sarah's unwavering loyalty and practical thinking provided a counterbalance to Emma's emotional devastation, while the other bridesmaids offered different perspectives and suggestions that helped Emma consider options she might not have thought of while dealing with the shock and disbelief of such a complete betrayal on what should have been the happiest day of her life. The conversation that took place between Emma and her parents in a quiet corner of the hotel lobby was one of the most difficult discussions she had ever had to navigate, because it required explaining not only the immediate crisis of discovering Marcus's infidelity, but also the broader implications of realizing that their entire relationship had been built on systematic deception that called into question every memory, conversation, and shared experience they had accumulated over 3 years together. Her father's initial reaction was protective anger toward Marcus, combined with concern for Emma's emotional well-being, while her mother's response focused on the practical implications of the situation and the need to make decisions quickly while still protecting Emma's reputation and minimizing the social and financial consequences of such a dramatic change in plans. The decision to postpone rather than cancel the wedding completely was suggested by Emma's mother as a compromise that would allow time for proper investigation of the allegations while avoiding the immediate humiliation and chaos of sending guests home without any explanation or ceremony at all. But Emma recognized that postponement would only delay the inevitable confrontation with Marcus and prolong the agony of uncertainty while giving him opportunities to craft explanations and excuses that might make the truth even more difficult to uncover and acknowledge. The evidence she had received was clear and comprehensive enough that additional investigation seemed unnecessary, and the thought of pretending everything was normal while secretly questioning every aspect of their relationship felt more unbearable than facing the immediate consequences of ending things decisively. The phone call that Emma finally made to Marcus took place from the privacy of the hotel's business center, where she could speak freely without being overheard by wedding guests or family members who were still arriving at the venue, expecting to witness a joyful celebration rather than a confrontation about betrayal and deception. Marcus's voice when he answered was cheerful and excited, filled with the kind of genuine happiness that made Emma question momentarily whether the evidence she had received could somehow be fake or misinterpreted. But his tone changed immediately when she began describing what she had discovered and asking for explanations that he couldn't provide without admitting to the deception he had been maintaining. Marcus's initial response to Emma's accusations was denial and confusion, claiming that he had no idea what she was talking about and suggesting that someone was trying to sabotage their wedding by creating false evidence designed to make her doubt their relationship at the most vulnerable moment possible. But his explanations became increasingly contradictory and desperate as Emma shared specific details from the photos and text messages that clearly showed him in intimate situations with another woman during times when he had given Emma specific alibis for his whereabouts. The progression from denial to anger to bargaining happened so quickly that Emma could almost hear his mind racing to find explanations that might salvage the situation while maintaining some version of his story that didn't require admitting to the full extent of his deception. The revelation that emerged during their phone conversation was even more devastating than what Emma had initially discovered, because Marcus eventually admitted not only to the relationship with the other woman, but also to a pattern of infidelity that had been ongoing throughout their entire relationship, involving multiple women and elaborate systems of lies and manipulation that had allowed him to maintain several simultaneous relationships while convincing each woman that she was his priority and the center of his emotional world. The casual way he discussed his behavior once the initial denials became impossible to maintain revealed a complete lack of understanding about the emotional damage he had caused and the betrayal of trust that would make any future relationship with Emma impossible, even if she could somehow forgive the infidelity itself. Marcus's attempts to minimize the significance of his other relationships and convince Emma that his feelings for her were genuine despite his inability to remain faithful created an additional layer of manipulation that demonstrated his continued lack of respect for her intelligence and emotional well-being, as he apparently believed she would be willing to accept a marriage where fidelity was optional and honesty was subordinated to whatever served his personal interests and desires at any given moment. His suggestion that they could work through the problems after their wedding and honeymoon revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation and the depth of damage that had been done to their relationship through his systematic deception and betrayal. The practical logistics of informing the wedding guests about the cancellation required careful coordination between Emma's family, the wedding coordinator, and venue staff to ensure that people were notified respectfully and given accurate information about what was happening without creating unnecessary drama or speculation about the specific reasons for the sudden change in plans. The decision was made to announce that the wedding was being postponed due to a family emergency, which was technically accurate since discovering that your fiancé has been living a double life certainly qualified as an emergency that required immediate attention and response from family members who cared about Emma's well-being and future happiness. The vendor coordination that followed the decision to cancel involved numerous phone calls and negotiations about refunds, cancellation fees, and the possibility of rescheduling services for a future date. Though Emma knew that any future wedding she might have would be with someone completely different and would require starting the planning process from scratch rather than simply postponing the celebration she had created with Marcus. The financial implications were significant but manageable, and the family's attitude was that any money lost in the process was a worthwhile investment in Emma's long-term happiness and protection from a marriage that would have been built on lies and continued deception. The reactions from wedding guests who had already arrived at the venue ranged from shock and disappointment to understanding and support, with most people expressing concern for Emma's well-being rather than frustration about the inconvenience of canceled travel plans and wasted time, creating a network of emotional support that helped Emma realize how many people genuinely cared about her happiness and would stand by her regardless of whatever social embarrassment or gossip might result from her decision to prioritize her own dignity and future well-being over the expectations and investments that others had made in celebrating her wedding. The revelation about Marcus's character that emerged through conversations with mutual friends and acquaintances who came forward after learning about the wedding cancellation painted a picture of someone who had been living multiple lives for years, with a pattern of deception and manipulation that extended far beyond romantic relationships into professional and social contexts, where he had created different versions of himself to serve whatever purposes were most advantageous at any given time. The immediate aftermath of canceling the wedding involved a complex mixture of relief, grief, and anger, as Emma processed not only the loss of the relationship she thought she had, but also the recognition that her instincts had been trying to warn her about Marcus's deception for months before she finally received concrete evidence that forced her to acknowledge the reality of his character and behavior. The emotional whiplash of going from anticipating the happiest day of her life to confronting complete betrayal and manipulation created a disorienting experience that made it difficult to trust her own perceptions and judgment about anything related to relationships, dating, or her ability to recognize genuine love and commitment versus sophisticated manipulation and deception. The support system that rallied around Emma in the days following her decision included not only family members and close friends who had witnessed her relationship with Marcus, but also acquaintances and colleagues who shared their own observations about his behavior and character that they had been reluctant to discuss, while Emma appeared happy and committed to someone who seemed successful and charming on the surface. The validation that her concerns and instincts had been accurate provided some comfort during a period of intense self-doubt and questioning about how she could have been so thoroughly deceived by someone she had trusted completely and planned to spend her life loving and supporting through whatever challenges and changes the future might bring. The investigation that Emma undertook into Marcus's background and history revealed additional layers of deception that extended far beyond his romantic relationships into his professional credentials, financial situation, and family background, creating a picture of someone who had been constructing false narratives about himself for years in order to maintain relationships and opportunities that wouldn't have been available if people knew the truth about his character, integrity, and actual circumstances. The discovery that even basic facts about his education and career achievements had been exaggerated or fabricated entirely made Emma realize that she had never actually known the real Marcus, but had instead been in love with a carefully constructed persona designed to attract and manipulate women who were successful, independent, and emotionally generous enough to support someone they believed was worthy of their trust and commitment. The legal consultation that Emma pursued regarding the financial and emotional damages she had suffered as a result of Marcus's deception revealed that fraud in the context of romantic relationships was difficult to prosecute, and that her best option for recovery was to focus on moving forward rather than seeking legal remedies that would require extensive time and energy while offering limited possibilities for meaningful compensation or justice. The lawyer's advice was to consider the money lost on wedding expenses as tuition paid for an expensive but valuable education about the importance of thoroughly investigating potential life partners and trusting her own instincts when something feels wrong about a relationship or a person's explanations for their behavior and circumstances. The healing process that began immediately after Emma's decision to cancel the wedding involved therapy sessions focused on rebuilding her confidence in her own judgment and learning to recognize the warning signs of manipulation and deception that she had previously dismissed or rationalized as normal relationship challenges that could be addressed through better communication and increased understanding between partners who were committed to working through their differences. The therapeutic work helped Emma understand that her willingness to give Marcus the benefit of the doubt and make excuses for suspicious behavior had been motivated by genuine love and trust rather than naivety or poor judgment, and that manipulative people are skilled at exploiting the emotional generosity and loyalty of their victims to maintain deceptive relationships that serve their own interests. Emma's decision to share her experience publicly through social media and speaking engagements was motivated by a desire to help other women recognize similar patterns of deception and manipulation in their own relationships, while providing support and encouragement for anyone who might be struggling with doubts about a partner's honesty or fidelity, but feeling uncertain about whether their concerns were valid or simply evidence of their own insecurity and paranoia. The response to her willingness to discuss the betrayal openly was overwhelmingly positive, with numerous women reaching out to share their own experiences with deceptive partners and expressing gratitude for Emma's courage in speaking honestly about such a painful and embarrassing situation. The professional development that emerged from Emma's personal crisis included enhanced skills in pattern recognition and critical thinking that made her more effective in her marketing career, where the ability to analyze behavior and identify discrepancies between stated intentions and actual actions proved valuable in evaluating potential business partners, vendors, and clients who might not be as reliable or honest as they initially appeared. The experience of being systematically deceived had sharpened her instincts and made her more cautious about accepting explanations and promises at face value without independent verification and ongoing observation of whether people's actions consistently matched their stated values and commitments. The dating process that Emma eventually resumed after taking time to heal and rebuild her confidence was approached with increased awareness and caution. As she applied the lessons learned from her experience with Marcus to recognize healthy relationship dynamics and identify potential red flags that might indicate controlling or manipulative tendencies in future romantic partners. Her enhanced understanding of emotional manipulation tactics made her a more discerning and confident partner who was better equipped to maintain her independence and personal boundaries while building romantic connections based on genuine compatibility and mutual respect rather than one-sided emotional investment and trust. The friendship network that developed among women who had experienced similar betrayals created an ongoing support system and resource for recognizing and responding to manipulation in romantic relationships, while also providing encouragement and validation for anyone who was struggling to rebuild their confidence and trust after being systematically deceived by someone they had loved and planned to marry. The connections formed through shared experiences of betrayal and recovery created lasting bonds that extended far beyond the initial crisis that brought them together, developing into genuine friendships based on mutual support and understanding of the complex emotions involved in healing from intimate deception. The anniversary of Emma's canceled wedding became an annual celebration of courage and authenticity rather than a painful reminder of betrayal and loss, as she chose to mark the date when she chose truth over social convenience and personal dignity over the expectations and investments that others had made in a relationship that was built on lies and manipulation. The tradition that developed around this anniversary included acts of service and support for other women who were facing difficult relationship decisions, creating positive meaning from what could have been simply a traumatic memory of the worst day of her life. The professional speaking career that emerged from Emma's willingness to share her experience publicly developed into a meaningful source of income and personal fulfillment as she traveled to conferences, corporate events, and women's organizations to discuss the importance of trusting intuition and recognizing red flags in personal and professional relationships that might indicate deeper problems with character and integrity. Her presentations combined personal storytelling with practical education about manipulation tactics and recovery strategies, helping audiences understand that being deceived by a skilled manipulator was not evidence of poor judgment or naivety, but rather proof that they possess the emotional generosity and trust that healthy relationships require. The book that Emma eventually wrote about her experience became a bestseller in the self-help and relationships category, providing detailed guidance for anyone who suspected they might be involved with someone who was not being completely honest about their background, feelings, or commitment to the relationship, while also offering hope and practical strategies for recovery and rebuilding after discovering that someone they trusted had been systematically deceiving them. The research that went into writing the book included interviews with relationship experts, psychologists, and other women who had experienced similar betrayals, creating a comprehensive resource that addressed both the emotional and practical aspects of recognizing and recovering from intimate deception. The media attention that followed the publication of Emma's book led to television appearances, podcast interviews, and magazine articles that helped raise awareness about the sophisticated manipulation tactics that some people use to maintain multiple relationships while convincing each partner that they are loved and valued above all others, creating situations where intelligent and successful women can be completely deceived by someone who is skilled at compartmentalizing their emotions and creating false narratives about their character and circumstances. The visibility that came with media appearances also created opportunities for Emma to connect with researchers and advocates who were working to understand and address the psychological and social factors that enable intimate deception to flourish in modern dating culture. The nonprofit organization that Emma founded 3 years after her canceled wedding focused on providing education and support for women who were dealing with deceptive partners or recovering from relationships that had been built on lies and manipulation, offering workshops, support groups, and individual counseling services that address the specific challenges involved in healing from intimate betrayal while rebuilding confidence in their own judgment and ability to recognize genuine love and commitment. The organization's work expanded to include advocacy for better legal protections for victims of romantic fraud and research into the long-term psychological effects of systematic deception in intimate relationships. Have you ever had that moment where your entire world shifted in an instant, where everything you thought you knew about someone suddenly became questionable and frightening? Emma's story reminds us that sometimes our greatest devastations become our most powerful transformations, and that the strength we discover in our darkest moments can become a light for others who are walking similar paths. If this incredible journey of betrayal and resilience is touching your heart or bringing up memories of your own experiences with trust and deception, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story matters and might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. What warning signs do you think people should watch for in relationships? How do we balance trust with protecting ourselves from those who might take advantage of our openness and love? The romantic relationship that Emma eventually developed with David, a fellow speaker she met at a conference about personal resilience, demonstrated the stark contrast between healthy partnership built on honesty and transparency versus the manipulative relationship she had escaped by canceling her wedding to Marcus, as David's approach to dating and commitment involved open communication about his past relationships, current circumstances, and genuine intentions rather than carefully crafted stories designed to create false impressions about his character and situation. Their courtship was characterized by gradual disclosure of personal information, consistent behavior that matched his stated values, and respect for Emma's need to move slowly and carefully after her previous experience with deception and betrayal. The wedding that Emma and David planned together was deliberately small and intimate, focused on celebrating their authentic connection rather than creating an elaborate production that might prioritize appearance over substance. With guest lists limited to people who genuinely knew and supported both partners, rather than extended networks of acquaintances who were invited primarily for social or professional reasons. The ceremony took place in Emma's parents' backyard, surrounded by family members and close friends who had witnessed Emma's journey from betrayal to healing to genuine love with someone whose character had been thoroughly demonstrated through consistent actions over time, rather than impressive promises about future behavior and commitment. The contrast between Emma's wedding to David and the canceled ceremony with Marcus was striking in its simplicity and authenticity, with vows that reflected genuine understanding of each other's values and life experiences, rather than generic promises about love and commitment that could have been delivered by any couple at any wedding ceremony. The photographer Emma chose specialized in capturing real emotions and spontaneous moments rather than posed portraits designed to create perfect images for social media, resulting in wedding photos that documented genuine joy and connection rather than performance and appearance. The honeymoon that Emma and David took to a national park where they could hike, camp, and spend time in nature reflected their shared values and interests rather than expensive luxury travel designed to impress others or create envy-inducing social media content, creating memories based on genuine shared experiences and simple pleasures rather than external validation and material indulgence. The trip provided opportunities for deeper conversation and connection away from the distractions and obligations of daily life, strengthening their bond through shared adventure and natural beauty rather than consumption and entertainment. Emma's mother's reflection on the difference between Marcus and David revealed how obvious the contrast was to people who had observed both relationships, as David's integration into the family felt natural and comfortable rather than performative and calculated, with conversations that flowed easily and interests that genuinely aligned with family values rather than carefully researched responses designed to create favorable impressions. The family dinners with David were relaxed and enjoyable rather than feeling like auditions or interviews where everyone was being evaluated and judged based on their ability to contribute to Marcus's image management and social positioning. The financial transparency that characterized Emma's relationship with David included open discussions about income, debt, savings, and financial goals that allowed them to make informed decisions about their future together, rather than operating on assumptions and hopes that might lead to surprises and conflicts after marriage, creating a foundation of trust and shared responsibility that would support their partnership through whatever economic challenges and opportunities they might face together. David's willingness to share detailed information about his financial situation and credit history demonstrated the kind of honesty and vulnerability that healthy relationships require. The children that Emma and David eventually welcomed into their family grew up with stories about the importance of honesty in relationships and the value of trusting their instincts when something doesn't feel right about how they're being treated by friends, romantic partners, or authority figures who might try to manipulate or deceive them for personal advantage. The family culture that Emma and David created emphasized open communication, critical thinking, and the confidence to ask questions and seek clarification when explanations don't make sense or when someone's actions don't match their stated intentions and values. The extended family relationships that David developed with Emma's parents and siblings felt genuine and lasting rather than superficial and strategic, as his interest in their lives and experiences came from authentic curiosity and care rather than calculated efforts to gain approval and acceptance that might benefit his relationship with Emma or his social standing within their community. The holiday celebrations and family gatherings that included David were comfortable and natural, with conversations that flowed easily and activities that everyone genuinely enjoyed rather than endured for the sake of maintaining appearances and family harmony. The professional collaboration that developed between Emma and David as they both built careers in motivational speaking and personal development created opportunities for them to support each other's work while maintaining individual identities and areas of expertise that allowed them to contribute uniquely to their shared mission of helping people build healthier relationships and make better decisions about trust and commitment. Their partnership demonstrated the difference between relationships that enhance each person's individual strengths versus those that require one or both partners to diminish themselves to accommodate someone else's need for control or superiority. The community impact of Emma's work extended beyond individual women who attended her presentations or read her book, to include changes in how local organizations and institutions approached education about relationship safety and the recognition of manipulation tactics that might be used by predatory individuals who target vulnerable people for financial, emotional, or social exploitation. The workshops that Emma conducted for college students, young professionals, and recently divorced individuals provided practical skills for evaluating potential partners and maintaining healthy boundaries that would protect them from people who might try to take advantage of their desire for love and connection. The research partnerships that Emma developed with academic institutions and mental health organizations contributed to a growing body of knowledge about the prevalence and impact of romantic deception, helping to establish intimate fraud as a legitimate area of study and intervention that deserved attention and resources from healthcare providers, legal professionals, and social service organizations that work with people who have experienced trauma and betrayal in their personal relationships. The data that emerged from these research collaborations revealed that Emma's experience was far more common than most people realized, with significant numbers of women and men reporting that they had discovered major deceptions about their partner's background, circumstances, or commitment to their relationship. The legal advocacy work that grew out of Emma's personal experience included efforts to establish clearer definitions and consequences for romantic fraud, particularly in cases where financial damages were significant, or where the deception involved falsified documents, credentials, or identity information that could be prosecuted under existing fraud statutes that had previously been applied primarily to business and financial crimes rather than intimate relationships. The legislative changes that resulted from this advocacy work provided better protections and remedies for people who had been systematically deceived by romantic partners who used their trust and affection to gain access to resources, information, or opportunities that would not have been available if their true character and circumstances had been known. The international speaking opportunities that emerged from Emma's reputation as an expert on relationship deception took her to conferences and events around the world, where she learned that the patterns of manipulation and betrayal she had experienced were universal human phenomena that transcended cultural, economic, and educational boundaries, affecting people from all backgrounds who shared the common vulnerability of wanting to love and be loved by someone who seemed worthy of their trust and commitment. The stories that she heard from audiences in different countries revealed similar tactics and outcomes, suggesting that manipulative individuals use predictable strategies that can be recognized and avoided with proper education and awareness. The mentorship relationships that Emma developed with younger women who were navigating their own relationship challenges provided opportunities for her to share the wisdom and insights she had gained from her experience while learning from the perspectives and experiences of people who were facing similar decisions in different circumstances and with different resources and support systems. The conversations that emerged from these mentoring relationships often revealed how much healing and growth Emma had achieved since her canceled wedding, as she found herself able to offer hope and guidance to others without feeling overwhelmed by memories of her own trauma and betrayal. The documentary that was eventually produced about Emma's story and its impact on other women featured interviews with relationship experts, legal professionals, and women who had been inspired by Emma's example to leave deceptive relationships or avoid becoming involved with manipulative partners who might have caused significant emotional and financial damage if their true nature had not been recognized early in the relationship. The film's success in raising awareness about romantic deception led to increased funding for research and support services that addressed this previously under-recognized form of intimate abuse and fraud. The anniversary tradition that Emma and David established for their own wedding included volunteer work with organizations that supported women in crisis, creating a meaningful way to celebrate their happiness while giving back to the community and honoring Emma's journey from victim to survivor to advocate for others who might be facing similar challenges. The annual service project, became a family tradition that involved their children and extended family members, creating opportunities for multiple generations to work together on behalf of people who needed support and encouragement during difficult transitions and healing processes. The speaking circuit that Emma and David developed together allowed them to reach larger audiences while demonstrating through their own relationship the possibility of finding genuine love and partnership after experiencing betrayal and deception, providing hope and inspiration for people who might be struggling to trust again or who had begun to believe that all relationships were fundamentally unreliable and potentially dangerous. Their presentations combined practical advice with personal testimony that helped audiences understand both the warning signs to watch for and the healing journey that was possible with proper support and commitment to personal growth. The legacy that Emma's canceled wedding created extended far beyond her personal healing journey to influence how wedding vendors, venues, and planners approach situations where couples might be experiencing serious relationship problems, or where family members express concerns about a partner's character or behavior that could indicate deeper issues with compatibility or integrity. The training programs that Emma developed for wedding industry professionals included guidance about recognizing red flags and responding appropriately when someone might need support or protection from a manipulative or abusive partner who was using the wedding planning process to further their control and deception. The scholarship fund that Emma established at her alma mater provided financial assistance for women who were pursuing degrees in psychology, social work, or related fields that would prepare them to work with people who had experienced intimate betrayal and deception, creating opportunities for future professionals to receive specialized training in recognizing and addressing the complex trauma that results from systematic manipulation by trusted partners. The recipients of these scholarships often became advocates and researchers themselves, expanding the network of professionals who understood and could address the unique challenges faced by survivors of romantic fraud and deception. The support groups that Emma facilitated in her local community became models for similar programs in other cities, as women who had participated in the healing process returned to help newly betrayed partners navigate their own journey from shock and devastation to acceptance and empowerment, creating a sustainable system of peer support that could operate independently of professional facilitators while maintaining the emotional safety and practical guidance that made recovery possible. The format that emerged from these groups balanced structured education about manipulation tactics with open discussion of personal experiences and feelings that allowed participants to process their trauma while learning from others who had faced similar challenges. The corporate consulting work that grew out of Emma's expertise included presentations for companies and organizations about recognizing and preventing workplace manipulation and fraud, as the skills involved in identifying personal deception often transferred to professional contexts where employees might be targeted by colleagues, vendors, or clients who used similar tactics to gain unauthorized access to information, resources, or opportunities that could benefit their own interests at the expense of their employers or coworkers. The workshops that Emma conducted for human resources departments and management teams provided practical tools for creating workplace cultures that discouraged manipulation while protecting vulnerable employees from predatory behavior. The research that Emma contributed to academic journals and professional publications helped establish intimate deception as a legitimate area of study within psychology and social work, providing empirical evidence for the prevalence and impact of romantic fraud while developing assessment tools and treatment protocols that could be used by therapists and counselors who worked with clients recovering from systematic betrayal by trusted partners. The peer-reviewed articles that resulted from this research provided credibility and visibility for an issue that had previously been dismissed as personal drama rather than recognized as a serious form of psychological abuse that deserved professional attention and intervention. The television series that featured Emma's story as part of a documentary about modern dating dangers reached millions of viewers who might not have otherwise learned about the sophisticated manipulation tactics that some people use to deceive potential partners while maintaining multiple relationships or hiding significant information about their background, character, or circumstances that would affect a reasonable person's decision about entering into a romantic relationship or making a commitment to marriage. The widespread exposure that resulted from this media coverage led to increased reporting of similar cases and greater awareness among law enforcement and legal professionals about the reality and impact of romantic fraud. The online platform that Emma developed provided resources and support for people who suspected they might be involved with deceptive partners, but weren't sure how to investigate their concerns or what to do with information that confirmed their worst fears about someone they loved and trusted, offering practical guidance about gathering evidence, protecting personal safety, and making difficult decisions about whether to confront partners or simply leave relationships that had been built on lies and manipulation. The interactive features of the platform allowed users to connect with others who had faced similar situations while maintaining anonymity and privacy that protected them from retaliation or further manipulation. You know, dear friends, as we near the end of Emma's incredible journey, I'm reminded of something powerful. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us becomes the catalyst for the most beautiful transformation we could never have imagined. Emma's story shows us that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define us. It can refine us, strengthen us, and ultimately lead us to a life more authentic and fulfilling than we ever thought possible. If you've stayed with me through this entire emotional roller coaster, if Emma's courage has inspired something in your own heart, please take a moment to let me know in the comments what this story meant to you. Have you ever had to choose between what looked good on the surface and what felt right in your heart? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is trust ourselves enough to walk away from what everyone expects us to want and choose what our soul knows we actually need. The mentoring program that Emma established for young women entering the workforce included guidance about recognizing and avoiding romantic partners who might try to exploit their ambition, success, or financial independence for personal gain, providing practical strategies for maintaining healthy relationships while protecting themselves from people who might see their achievements as opportunities for manipulation or control, rather than sources of pride and support. The curriculum that developed from this program addressed both personal safety and professional protection, helping participants understand how romantic relationships could be used to gain access to confidential information, business contacts, or career opportunities that could benefit manipulative partners at the expense of their victims' professional reputation and advancement. The international conference that Emma organized brought together researchers, advocates, survivors, and legal professionals from around the world to share knowledge and strategies for addressing romantic fraud and intimate deception on a global scale, creating opportunities for cross-cultural learning and collaboration that recognize the universal nature of manipulation tactics while respecting cultural differences in how relationships are formed and maintained. The connections that resulted from this gathering led to ongoing research partnerships and policy initiatives that improved legal protections and support services for survivors of intimate betrayal in multiple countries and legal systems. The autobiography that Emma published on the 10th anniversary of her canceled wedding provided a comprehensive account of her journey from naive trust through devastating betrayal to empowered advocacy, offering hope and practical guidance for anyone who had experienced similar deception while demonstrating the possibility of not just recovery, but transformation that could create meaning and purpose from even the most painful experiences. The foundation that Emma and David established together combined their individual expertise and resources to address the broader social and cultural factors that enable romantic deception to flourish, including research into how dating apps and social media platforms might be exploited by manipulative individuals who use technology to create false identities and maintain multiple relationships while avoiding detection by partners who might otherwise recognize inconsistencies in their stories or behavior. The grants that this foundation provided to researchers and advocacy organizations supported innovative approaches to prevention and intervention that could reach larger numbers of potential victims before they suffered significant emotional and financial damage. The children's book series that Emma wrote addressed age-appropriate concepts about trust, honesty, and recognizing when someone might not be telling the truth or treating them with the respect and kindness they deserved, providing parents and educators with tools for helping young people develop critical thinking skills and emotional intelligence that would protect them from manipulation throughout their lives. The stories featured diverse characters facing various challenges related to friendship, family relationships, and academic situations where dishonesty or manipulation might occur, teaching children to trust their instincts while also understanding the difference between honest mistakes and deliberate deception. The documentary series that followed Emma's work over 5 years showed the long-term impact of her advocacy and education efforts on individual survivors and broader social awareness of romantic fraud, featuring follow-up interviews with women who had attended her presentations or participated in her support groups years earlier and had gone on to build healthy relationships or avoid dangerous situations based on the knowledge and confidence they had gained through Emma's programs. The series also documented changes in legal systems, healthcare approaches, and social service programs that had been influenced by Emma's research and advocacy work. The retirement plans that Emma and David developed included transitioning their foundation and educational programs to the next generation of advocates and researchers who had been trained through their mentorship programs and academic partnerships, ensuring that the work they had started would continue to evolve and expand even after they stepped back from active leadership roles. The succession planning process involved identifying and supporting emerging leaders who brought diverse perspectives and experiences to the mission, while maintaining the core values and principles that had guided Emma's journey from personal trauma to social impact. The grandchildren who eventually joined Emma and David's family grew up hearing stories about courage, authenticity, and the importance of treating others with honesty and respect, while expecting the same treatment in return, creating a new generation that was better equipped to recognize and avoid manipulative relationships while building healthy connections based on genuine compatibility and mutual support. The family traditions that developed around these values included annual service projects, discussions about current events and social issues, and celebrations of family milestones that emphasized character and contribution over material success or social status. The academic chair that was established in Emma's name at a major university supported ongoing research into intimate partner deception and the development of prevention and intervention programs that could be implemented in healthcare settings, educational institutions, and community organizations, where people might seek help or guidance when facing relationship challenges that involved possible manipulation or fraud. The scholars who held this position continued to build on Emma's work while exploring new questions and approaches that reflected changing social conditions and technological developments that affected how relationships were formed and maintained. The international recognition that Emma received for her advocacy work included awards from organizations dedicated to women's rights, mental health awareness, and fraud prevention, acknowledging her contribution to protecting vulnerable individuals from exploitation while promoting healthier relationship dynamics and greater social awareness of the tactics used by manipulative partners to deceive and control their victims. The speaking opportunities that resulted from this recognition allowed Emma to reach even larger audiences while inspiring other survivors to transform their own experiences into advocacy and support for others facing similar challenges. The memoir that became a bestseller and was adapted into a major motion picture brought Emma's story to audiences who might never have encountered information about romantic deception through academic or therapeutic channels, using entertainment media to educate viewers about warning signs and prevention strategies while demonstrating the possibility of recovery and growth after experiencing profound betrayal by someone who was supposed to love and protect them. The film's success led to increased funding for research and support services, while also inspiring other survivors to share their stories and seek help when they might otherwise have suffered in isolation and shame. The legacy that Emma created through her response to Marcus's betrayal demonstrated that even the most devastating personal experiences could become sources of strength and purpose that benefit not only the individual who survived them, but entire communities of people who face similar challenges and need hope, guidance, and support to navigate their own healing journeys. The ripple effects of her decision to cancel her wedding and expose Marcus's deception continued to spread years later through the lives of women who avoided dangerous relationships, left manipulative partners, or simply developed better skills for recognizing genuine love and commitment versus sophisticated manipulation and control. The final reflection that Emma often shared in her presentations emphasized that discovering Marcus's betrayal on her wedding day had initially felt like the worst thing that could have happened to her, but had ultimately become the greatest gift she could have received, because it prevented her from spending years or decades trapped in a marriage with someone who was incapable of the honesty and fidelity that healthy relationships require, while opening the door to genuine love with David and meaningful work that had helped thousands of other women avoid or escape similar situations. My beautiful friends, thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through Emma's story of betrayal, courage, and transformation. Her experience reminds us that sometimes what feels like our greatest failure or most devastating loss is actually life protecting us from something much worse while preparing us for something much better than we could have imagined. If this story has touched your heart or reminded you of the power we all have to turn our pain into purpose, please stay connected with our amazing community by clicking on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now to continue exploring these powerful themes of resilience, authenticity, and the amazing strength we discover when life forces us to choose between what looks right and what feels true.